Hey, I'm Stacy. I just moved into a new construction home 2 months ago, and I'm going to be sharing my DIYs and encouragement for your spiritual walk. Welcome to the Summer Home. If God spoke to you, what would his tone of voice be? I found this gem of a teaching that Pope Francis gave on May 3rd of 2020. It's this little gem of a teaching about God's tone of voice. There are several hallmarks about God's tone of voice to help us distinguish if it's God or the devil speaking to us. This is such an important and wonderful and affirming addition to this conversation I've been having on my channel about hearing God speak and recognizing his voice in our daily lives. I'm going to combine that with glowing up my master bathroom. I have been living mentally in this house for 2 years. So even though we just moved in 2 months ago, I am ready to do a few things to make this space extra special. So be sure you watch all the way to the end to see the final reveal. This marble tile is such a delight. It really makes the room. I scored that for $2 a square foot on Facebook Marketplace, and also the bathtub and the bathroom hardware. So this is a Marketplace bathroom through and through. Okay, freeze here for a second. You see that big, beautiful 5 foot by 5 foot window? It is gorgeous, and I don't want to lose any of that light. However, it is so large and modern, it doesn't fit with the traditional style of the rest of the room, so I'm going to add window mullions, which I think will make it look really special. First, I'm going to be fixing up this lovely lady. This is a Monstera deliciosa that I've had for 3 years. She's growing great, but she is looking very droopy, so we're going to fix her up, and we're also going to do a couple other things. We're going to add picture frame molding to the walls. I'm going to add lampshades that I make to those little light sconces. Oh, and did I mention my total budget is $68? But first, a visit to my favorite local artist. I commissioned this work from John Summerow, who also happens to be my husband, but he's my favorite local artist, first and foremost. His commission price was kind of high. It was like sharing life and babies and a house and stuff, but I feel like it's worth it because he's really talented. And he's doing this reproduction of Willard Metcalf's Glouster Bay for me to hang on the wall of the bathroom. And in the process, inspiring our 2 oldest to express themselves through art as well, which I love. It was such a massive struggle to get this towel rack off. We just don't use it where it is, so we're going to move it elsewhere in the bathroom. And this is the picture frame molding. I found it at Habitat for Humanity. It was only $3 for each 8-foot section, and I ended up using 16 8-foot sections. So that's what it looks like up close, and it's about 1 inch thick. So here I am taping up the boxing of the picture frame molding that we're going to use. Honestly, there's so many tutorials for picture frame molding online. I'm not going to tell you how to do it, and other people could probably tell you much better. So I'm going to switch gears. I want to talk about God's tone of voice, and I want to illuminate this beautiful little teaching of Pope Francis. This teaching was from Good Shepherd Sunday, and so Pope Francis started off by quoting, "The sheep hear his voice, and he calls his own sheep by name and leads them out." That's John 10:3. He says the Lord calls us by name. He calls us because he loves us. However, there are other voices that resonate within us that are not to be followed, those of strangers, thieves, and brigands who mean to harm the sheep. So he said we have to learn to discern these 2 different voices, the voice of God, the voice of the evil ones. And he said they speak different languages. So we can start to learn these languages. The first hallmark that he says is that God proposes himself. He does not impose himself. He never forces himself. Instead, the evil voice seduces, assails, forces. He says it arouses dazzling illusions, emotions that are tempting but transient. And at first it flatters, it makes us believe that we're all powerful, but then it leaves us empty inside and accuses us, "You are worth nothing." On the other hand, the voice of God corrects us with great patience, but is always encouraging and consoling. I love this quote so much. He says, God's voice is a voice that has a horizon, whereas the voice of the evil one leads you to a wall. It backs you into a corner. Write that down. Here's another difference. The voice of the enemy distracts us from the present and wants us to focus on fears of the future or sadness about the past. Pope Francis says the enemy does not want the present. It brings to surface the bitterness, the memories of wrongs suffered, of those who have hurt us. On the other hand, the voice of God speaks in the present. Now you can do good. Now you can exercise the creativity of love. Now you can forego the regrets and the remorse that hold your heart captive. It always speaks in the present, now, and leads us ahead. The third point, the third difference between the voice of God and the voice of the evil one, is that the voices raise different questions in us. The voice of the devil raises the question, what do I feel like doing? It revolves around the ego, impulses, needs. It wants everything straight away. It's like a child's tantrums. I want everything and I want it now. The voice of God, however, asks what is good for me. It never promises joy at a low price. It invites us to go beyond our ego in order to find the good and true peace. As an aside, it got super tedious using hand tools to make this, and it would look better with power tools for sure. So you might just want to do yourself a favor and buy power tools if you know you're going to be doing a lot of picture frame molding. Anyway, back to Pope Francis. He says the style of evil causes frenzy and then leaves bitterness. The style of evil. I'm meditating on that. I am really taking this to contemplation, and it's really helping me identify a lot of the sadness and the loneliness that I've been feeling. I will link to the video where I just shared my makeover of my mudroom and pantry and everything that I did for that. And in that video, I was sharing a lot of thoughts of loneliness that have been with me. And this, going back to this teaching, is so helpful to help me identify and remember which is the voice of God, what is the language of God. Finally, God's voice and that of the tempter speak in different so-called environments. What is an environment? It means that the enemy prefers darkness, falsehood, and gossip, but the Lord loves sunlight, truth, and sincere transparency. The enemy will say to us, close yourself up, close yourself in, because no one understands and listens to you. Do not trust. However, God invites us to open up, to be clear, to trust in God and trust in others. I think this is such a timely thing in this crazy era, and I hope that this little teaching, I'll link it below, I hope this little teaching is as helpful for you as it is for me when I'm tempted to despair. Okay, back to DIY mode. Here's the sconces, and I'm going to use my favorite fabric. I got this from Hobby Lobby. It's hard to find really good fabric, I find. I don't know, it's so challenging. I'm picky, but I love this stripe pattern. It's like a take on a ticking stripe. And I'm just gonna let you watch what I do because it's kind of hard to explain, but I'm just gathering the fabric here. This was an inspiration. It's actually a direct copy from my dear friend, Kate, who I gotta have her on the podcast. I gotta have her on this channel. She is a mom of 4. She's like 38 weeks pregnant right now, and I'm gonna have her on as soon as I can. But this was her idea, and I loved it so much, and she's always so nice about letting me copy her. So thanks, Kate. I'd love to hear in the comments below what resonated with you about what I just shared about Pope Francis's teaching. What really spoke to your heart and helped you to see things in a new way? For me, I keep coming back to God's voice has a horizon, whereas the enemy wants to back you into a corner. That's kind of a weird way to describe it, but like to me, it makes such perfect sense. God always invites hope. He always invites with a way forward, and he's never accusatory.
We interrupt this DIY to bring you a message from this episode's sponsor, Catholic Women and Couples Natural Family Planning, known as CWC-NFP. Did you know that only 20% of Catholic couples have ever tried a natural family planning method? CWC-NFP is offering classes for free. Free? You heard it right. $0 out of your pocket to learn how to use natural family planning and work with God's design for your fertility to plan your family. 8 years into marriage, my husband and I can attest that natural family planning is a lot of work. It's the kind of virtue that is built with charity, temperance, prayer, and generosity, but it is so worth it, and the statistics agree with me. 98% of couples who use NFP stay together. versus the egregiously high divorce rate in our country. So if you want to do something good for your marriage or for your future marriage,
then follow the link in the show notes to go to their website, get connected with an instructor, and get virtual training either in English or in Spanish. CWC NFP trains in the Billings method, but there are others available. So if Billings is not the right method for you, they will help refer you to a method that's going to work best for you. So thank you to CWC NFP for sponsoring today's episode. And now let's get back to the DIY. If you don't know what mullions are, they are the little strips that separate window panes, and you can buy these fake mullions. They're peel and stick. They were $20 on Amazon for about 30 feet. You can just cut them with scissors. They're super easy to use. So I'm just going to show you how I added a little bit of interest and detail to my window. So the secret I found to keeping these level, because they are so flexible, is to use a level, as you can see me doing here. My head's a little bit in the way, but there you go. You can see how easy it is to keep it level and to really actually make it look like it truly is part of the original window. This took maybe 20 minutes, but it was a very easy DIY. Highly recommend, and I'll link to these. These aerial roots will not hurt the plant when you cut them off. I've never trimmed these before. This monstera is about 3 years old. I actually got this when my daughter was in the NICU, when I knew she was coming home. She was in for 126 days, and so I call this her victory plant. So I will keep it as long as it is growing. I love this plant so much. And I'm putting the beautiful pastel my husband did in a frame that I already owned, and just hanging it in the middle of the picture frame molding in a place that feels like it makes sense. Picture frame molding is so great. It's more subtle on camera, but in real life, it adds such elegance to any space, I find, and I just love the sophisticated way it kind of frames the room. It makes the room feel orderly and elevated, and it's just delightful. 12 boxes in one room was a lot. It's gonna be a while before I'm gonna want to do picture frame molding again, but it's worth it. So let's do a reveal.